Hey everyone, it's Kels from Scrapbook.com, and today I'd like to show you how to make some fun pinwheels. They're summery, they're bright, they're very whimsical, very kid-friendly, and you can add them easily to your layouts and projects, and they are quick and easy to assemble with just a few tools and some pattern paper. To begin our pinwheel tutorial, you need just a few materials. You need a pair of scissors. A piercing mat and a piercer will come in really handy if you want to add a brad center to your pinwheel. You may need a mini glue dot or some other type of round, small adhesive that can easily stick to the center of your pinwheel, or even a glossy accents or any type of liquid glue so that you can simply glue your pinwheel together and embellish it later. You also may want a mini stapler or a regular size stapler so that you can adhere your pinwheel together in the center with staples. And a variety of brads or buttons of any kind are great to have on hand for the pinwheel centers. And then you just need a variety of pattern paper. For this example, it's not going to be double-sided, but I will show you some examples where it is double-sided, so you get the effect of having both patterns on either side of the pinwheel. For this tutorial, I'm just going to be using single-sided cardstock with a white background. Single-sided pattern paper, rather. And you just need square pieces, depending on how large you would like to make your pinwheel. So I've selected my pattern paper from these two stacks, and I have created just some various size squares that I'm going to demonstrate how to make pinwheels with. So I have, for example, a 6.5 by 6.5, a 5 by 5, a 4 by 4, a 3.5 by 3.5, and a 2.5 by 2.5. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. We're going to take one of our squares, and these are so easy to make. All you really need to do is find the center of your paper. I tend to be a visual person and I'm just going to eyeball it, but if you wanted to, you could measure in on this 6.5, you could measure in 3.25 and down 3.25 and make a pencil mark. For this particular tutorial, I'm just going to kind of note that the middle of my paper is somewhere around here, and I'm not going to be too specific about it. Pinwheels are actually really forgiving. And all we're going to do is cut in from each of our corners toward our center, but not through it. We need a base in here where we're going to put our glue dot or our brad center or our button center. So we want to make sure that our cut lines from each of the four corners don't intersect with that middle area that we've outlined. Okay, so I'm just going to cut in real quick toward my middle from each of the 4 points of my paper. And again, I'm not being real precise with this. If you're a perfectionist, absolutely go precise. Get out that ruler, grab that pencil, make a precise middle mark. If you're not and you're more like me, just freehand it. Okay, once you have your 4 cuts, you're going to have something that looks like this, but again, we've left our center intact. And now all we're going to do is fold. I want more of my pattern side to show. If you have a pattern on both sides, you can just pick which pattern you want to show. And we're just going to fold in. You can see where I made my mark here about what size the paper was, and I may have to erase that. Hopefully not. And I'm going to use a glue dot for this one, and I'm going to show you how you can go right through a glue dot with a paper piercer to use a brad. So I'm just using a mini glue dot. It's pretty flat. I'm just going to stick it in my center, and this is just going to catch all of my little pinwheel corners. Okay, and then I'm just going to fold in again. I'm going to skip a point and fold in the next point. Okay. Skipping a point and folding in the next point. Now you can see I kind of do need to be a little bit more precise in my cutting of these so that I do get to that very center. But again, if you cover it with a big enough button, no one's going to notice these small imperfections. So I just want everything to stick right to my glue dot there. and you'll see you've already got this great pinwheel working. Okay, and it does get a little tricky because sometimes the adhesive gets touched just a little bit too much and doesn't want to stick down. So I just tend to, again, I want to hold it. I'm going to slide my push pad right underneath here, and I'm going to use my piercer to just go through the glue dot and the center points. Some of them will grab, some of them will not. That's why we have the glue dot in there, is because we want them all to have something to sort of stick to until we can choose a brad that we want to use. Now I happen to have really, really, really small brads for this, and this is quite a big pinwheel. So I could even change my mind and maybe I'll switch to the buttons for this one. And I'm going to use a really giant button because obviously you see where I kind of have gotten my pinwheel a little off center. And I'm going to double button. You can do a single button or a double button. Okay, and I'm just going to make sure that my liquid glue tip is cleared. And I'm going to actually start by adhering button to button for my center. And this can take just a little bit to dry, but it also means it's really forgiving. So I can move it around. So once I get it in my pinwheel center, I can catch a lot of these points of my pinwheel and let it dry. And you can see where I can cover up my pencil lines, and I can sort of forgive a lot of the mistakes that I've made. And I'll just kind of hold this until it is tacky enough that it won't let go. And then you can even take, if you have a round paper piercer like this, or if you have a pencil or anything, you can kind of take and roll these pinwheel parts around here to get a nice thick roll so that these really stand up and really become 3D. So just kind of work them. They're very, very easy. This is one of the larger ones that I would recommend doing because obviously too, as a page accent, this can be really cumbersome to fit on a 12 by 12 page. Okay, but essentially there you have it. We've made a pinwheel. Let me do one more on camera so you guys can see it, and this time I have actually made a precise dot on the back in the middle, and I'm going to cut in toward that, again leaving myself just a little bit of free space so that I don't cut all the way through. Okay, so I'm probably going to get within 1/4 of an inch or so of that dot. Okay, I'm going to do all 4 points again, and this one should be a little bit more precise, and you'll notice I'm working on a smaller canvas now. This is my 4 by 4. And again, you can draw pencil lines over the entire square if you want to be really precise, but for this I am just eyeballing it based on my center, and now I'm going to fold in my points, okay? And I am going to do a brad center this time. Since I'm working on a smaller surface, it's going to make more sense. So let's get our glue dot in the center, and then we just pick a corner and start folding. Fold right into that point that you made, that center point, and get your pinwheel to stick to that glue dot. Okay, and do all 4 points like so. And once you have them in the center, go ahead and pierce. And again, this should go right through several layers of cardstock and your glue dot. And again, your glue dot will lose a little bit of stickiness. If you have super amazing glue dots, maybe it won't, and then it's a little bit easier even to work with. But mine seem to lose their stick pretty easily. And then you just put your brad right through the center, grab it on the back, and push it apart. And now you have a secure pinwheel. And again, these make really great summery page embellishments, and I'll just show you a couple of samples here. So I did this page with my daughter, and I added a couple of different sized pinwheels. So you'll see this is a 4-inch, so this is a 3-inch, and these are actually 2-inch mini pinwheels. The 2 inches is about as small as I would recommend going. They get really extremely difficult to work with after 2 inches. So if you go down to a 1.5 or a 1-inch pinwheel, just be ready to do some really fine handwork. And here's another example of just some fun pinwheels, and you'll notice that in both of these last samples, these are double-sided. This one has a solid color with a pattern on one side, and these had just a double pattern. So you can play around with whatever looks best, whatever fits your page, and they make really fun accents.